Hello and welcome to MS is Chronic. I'm Barney Black, and in this episode we have the wonderful company of Dominic Shadbolt. Dominic is quite prolific. Quite is an understatement. Dominic is very prolific in the multiple sclerosis community, and he may be familiar to those of you with MS or who have an awareness of MS, because this year he is about to undertake a huge challenge, adventure, cycling across Canada. I'm just going to read from the Ride Canada for MS website, because this captures it exactly. In 2025, the TheMSGuide, also known as Dominic, embarks on an extraordinary journey, a coast-to-coast 8,000-kilometre cycling expedition across Canada, with the ambitious goal of raising $1 million for MS brain health. This epic ride symbolises resilience, determination, and the power of community, aiming to transform the lives of people living with multiple sclerosis. Having spent the last couple of weeks getting to know Dom, we spent some time talking about his own multiple sclerosis. He's had MS for 33 years, and he, like I say, has been very prolific in the MS community in various initiatives, trials, boards. He's just involved all the time. So I've been very lucky, very honoured to have Dominic as a guest on my podcast. If you could listen, like and share, that would help raise some awareness for the cycle challenge that Dominic's taken on. If you're able to go to Dominic's pages, they will all be in the show notes, all the various links to all the relevant websites and different social media platforms. Donating $1 would be amazing. If you could like and share Dominic's pages as well, that would certainly help the algorithms and get the message out there and let people see exactly what Dominic is taking on, and he starts on the 1st of May. I want to give a shout out to Karen Ablett, who also has been a guest on the podcast, friend of the show, and Karen and I keep in touch, and just she set this up between Dominic and I to have the podcast that we did the other day there, and Karen is also known as Mrs. Sparkle. And so thanks, Karen. Thank you very much for that. And Karen's TikTok link will also be in the show notes. That's it for now. There are loads and loads of other bits and pieces in the podcast. So without any plot spoilers, here he is, Dominic Shadbolt, the TheMSGuide, on MS is Chronic. Happy listening. Thank you for taking the time out of your very, very busy, hectic schedule to join me on MS is Chronic. I'm genuinely honoured to have someone of your ilk taking part in this. Your ilk. And we did have a brief chat last week and very quickly got to the point of now actually doing this recording. Thank you to Karen Ablett, obviously, who's kind of put us together.
Hang on, no, Mrs. Sparkles.
Mrs. Sparkles, absolutely. She does sparkle. She's always got a smile. And I figured there's two parts to what we talk about tonight. The first part, because MS is Chronic, is actually, I know that a little bit about your story about MS 30 years ago, diagnosis, etc. But I don't know a huge amount, and however many people listen to this, I'm sure would love to hear and learn a little bit about that. And then the second part is why you're so prolific just now, is you've got a fairly daunting, exciting, amazing, incredible, scary adventure coming. And I just before I kind of pass over to yourself, so you can share a little bit about you, I had a look at your LinkedIn profile, which I don't know if you remember writing this.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah. What did I say? It's like being called in front of the headmaster's office, and you're thinking, "Oh, what have I done? What have I done?"
It's quite extensive, but it's all genuine, and it's all very it's all backed up with stuff that you do and have done. So you're an MS expert patient, you're a cyclist for MS, and clearly we're going to hear a bit about that. You're a researcher, you're an AI advocate, you're an author, you're a reviewer, you're a lecturer, you're a YouTube and a podcast host. And you can even call yourself a journalist because of the content that you put together. The one thing you need to add to update that profile is, and when you come back, is you are a bona fide adventurer.
Yeah, a survivor. I'm not sure. I think my wife.
Oh, survivor.
Yeah.
My wife
Yeah.
thinks I might get gobbled by bears, and I'm trying to explain
just
to her that
loon,
it's
yeah.
actually really down the list of risks.
Yeah. So we'll get to the bears.
There's no
But
need.
for me, as much as anybody that does care to listen to this, if you don't mind sharing, 30 years ago you were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, but the journey, I guess, leading up to that, and then we can just see how the conversation takes us.
Okay, so I'll give you as you can imagine, Brian, I may have had to explain this once or twice. I'm 56 now. I was 23 when I was diagnosed in 1993. And I would say I used to have an incredibly active lifestyle. I worked in the ski industry in Canada, and then I worked in drilling rigs on Australia, because I did I'm going to go hitchhike across Australia thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, essentially, you were just active because of what you did. And I then got a job with a drug company, and that involved tons of training courses and hotels and everything. And I was trying to essentially eat for about 4 people because I used to be able to burn off those kind of calories every day.
Yeah.
And it's fair to say my weight ballooned. I was quite a large gentleman at one stage, and I thought, sort yourself out, Dominic. And I went for a run. I was living in Windsor at the time, and I just think, how you remember certain points of your life. There's sort of really real clarity around, I don't know, the music or the image that you saw. And I was running down the Great Mile in Windsor Great Park because it's just open to the public. And, so you're looking at the castle going, oh, it's really cool. And I looked at my shoes and I just felt like I'm plugged into the mains. And it's called the hermit sign. It's from a lesion in the neck. And it wasn't painful, but it was a massively strong sensation. And that sort of, you're like this going, bloody hell, what's wrong? And scroll forward a week or two, and we got some friends over, and one of them was a fairly freshly minted doctor. We're having a barbecue, and I said, Charlotte, she's ended up as a cardiologist and not as a no, but I said, I hate to bug you, it's not cool to talk to your friends about things like this, when it's like saying to a dentist at a party, and she said, all right, okay, she just give it a month, and if it's don't go running, which was being told not to run is fantastic. I hate running, and if it happens in a month, go see a GP. And it was. And I went to see my GP, and in those days, they weren't doing computerized notes. They wrote stuff down. And being a drug rep, you got quite handy at reading upside down, what the doctor was writing. And I saw the hermits, and I went and looked that up and thought, oh, it's not looking good. And I got referred to a neurologist, and bash, I went into an MRI machine at St. Mary's, and it must have been, it was huge and noisy. And everyone who thinks an MRI is big and noisy these days, you ought to go see the old ones. It really do feel like the old person going, in my day, because it looked like every time they plugged it in, all the lights in London would dim a bit. And it sounded like they're given a whole troop of monkeys or baboons all the whiskey they could drink and access to like mallets and metal plates. And you're just lying there going, bloody hell. And it came out, MS, long story short. And there were no drugs. I said to the neurologist, what do I do? Because I've been looking into this, and I wasn't shocked when they told me the diagnosis, because I worked out pretty much that was the likelihood. So what do I do?
Can I just ask, the diagnosis, did they go straight to progressive or relapsing? Or
I'm still marked down as relapsing.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
So it turns out he was a Parkinson's specialist, because MS wasn't that sexy. There was nothing to treat it with. If you're a doctor, what could you do? And but I said, so what do you recommend? And he went, oh, eat less red meat. And I went, and he went, oh, it's just like, essentially, you're bugging, mate. You don't know. Well, what will happen? I don't know. When will it happen? I don't know. It's like, okay, and being sort of a young man, you're fairly invincible. I don't know. When I was young, I was like, hard to break in my mind. And I just went off and thought, I feel fine now, like you often do after an MS attack. And I remember sketching out an off-road wheelchair because I was into mountain biking. And I thought, well, I want my friends to let me go at the top and just, full suspension straight down the path, and, wear a helmet and some body armor. But then that was pretty much it until, the drugs started to come out, and I approached the hospital, and, and I've been really lucky, Barney, because I've had, you know, you don't know that you're dealing with somebody who's actually one of the best.
Okay, yeah.
This lady called Professor Jackie Pallas, and she said to me, because there was strict rules on how to get on, how you could put somebody on beta interferon, but she kind of talked me through it, and I said, I want the drugs. And she went, "But you can't." And I said, "Why not?" And she looked at me, you know, one of these, "I'm now telling you what's going to happen, Barney," sort of things. And she said, "Were you to come back and say, I don't know, 3 months with maybe a leg problem or something?" And she said, "Then we get," I went, "Oh, right, message received." And about 2.7 months later, there I am going, "You wouldn't believe what's happened, doctor," you know, because I tripped over once and I thought, "Oh, that'll do it." I said, "You won't believe what she went, oh, that's shocking." She said, "I think we better put you on the drugs. Would you like to try?" I went, "Oh, yes, please." And so that was it. It was on to beta interferon. Then she pointed out about the neutralizing antibodies that build up. And she was at the forefront of that research. Came off that, went on to Copaxone. Loathed that. I just don't mind injecting.
Copaxone's the injection, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's beta interferon. The Copaxone is there, but I look like I'm being shot at close range around the stomach with a shotgun because it sort of made it, you know, I didn't get on with the injection sites. And then they were running a trial in Oxford because I live near Oxford, and it's one of the big trial centers in the UK for MS. And that was Tecfidera, dimethyl fumarate, DMF, some people might see it as. And I met a doctor there who's another really great person. His name was Matt Craner. Turns out he was in the Navy as well as he did half Navy, half NHS. And MS was his specialty. And he was super into cycling. And I was into cycling. I've always been into cycling. And I just remember one day chatting with us, and the nurse just sort of opens the door and said, "What are you two doing?" And I was around the other side of the desk, and we'd scrolled out a map of the US, and he was describing the route he'd used to cycle across the US when he finished his PhD. And she said, "There's people waiting." We just got so carried away on this is cool. And then he said to me, "I think you've done so well with your MS because you've been active."
Yeah.
And that sort of, you know, that something like that is enough to keep you going around. I'm going to sort of double down and be active. And was on Tecfidera, finished a trial. About a year later, I went on to Ocrevus, and then went on to alemtuzumab because my view is hit it with the biggest hammer you can. You know, it's like a nightclub bouncer. There's a difference between putting somebody in a headlock or just knocking them out. You know, if you knock them out Sparko, they're no longer a problem.
Yeah.
And alemtuzumab is pretty hefty, but that's what it does to the MS. And here we are. And that's it. That's 33 years of MS crunched up into about 5 minutes.
Perfect. Like you said, you're well versed at telling your story. Just going back, you had the Lermite syndrome, which I'm familiar with. MRI scan. Were there any other symptoms?
Again, you know, you realize you've been fortunate. It was the Lermite, and because I was working for a company, I had private healthcare through the company. And private healthcare, people don't understand. I think it doesn't mean you get a better quality of a doctor. You can often see one sooner.
Yeah.
But
you have the quickness of it.
Yeah, you don't know. The guy who diagnosed me was a Parkinson's specialist.
Yeah.
You know, because I ended up with my neuro before the latest one was Professor Gavin Giovannoni, Prof G. People know him as. But and he was talking me through, and he went, "Oh, he's Parkinson's, or he was Parkinson's." It was like, "Oh, right." You know, it's like, what do you know as a patient? You know, you're looking sort of through the wrong end of the telescope. You know, so and now I'm because Prof G has retired from the NHS, but he's doing research, and I'm with one of his colleagues, you know, Dr. Sharmali Nanapavan. I had to introduce her once. I said, "How do you say your name?" And she told me, and eventually I said, like this, "It's good enough. The only person who gets it right is my dad, so it's good enough."
Yeah,
right?
that's close to
okay. Well, you know, it's like if I called you Mr. Black, you know, and it's like it's black, you know, and it's like you just want to get someone's name right if you're talking about them and introducing them.
Yeah.
You know,
you're right, actually. Yeah, you're definitely right. As your condition with MS over the 30 years, I guess other things have occurred. You've had other relapses. Actually, I listened to one of your podcasts. Was it a podcast I listened to just recently? I think last year you had a pretty heavy relapse on your right-hand side or something.
Yeah. It's just, you know, I haven't had many. So it's sort of stood out. I've lost some right leg function. It's better People think I'm
Cool.
zealot. It's better with exercise. The more I exercise, the better it
Exercise.
is. Yeah. The less I do, the worse it becomes.
Yeah.
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 And you can call me a cynic. I've got a cane because it was it freaks you out. You know what it's like. You have a relapse and you're thinking, shit, is this the end? Is this it? Am I ever going to come back from this? Is this, and you get over that, and I get into my bloody mind like, I am not going to let the bugger win, and I mean, the cycle ride wasn't a reaction to that. It was because I was chatting to Prof G before Ektrams last year, and it was like, yeah. And just this, it was in August, and he's a very naughty man because he managed to talk me up to make it $1 million, not $500,000. As a fundraising target. He's very much like gives you the
that's
idea.
That's a nice round figure, though. That
Well, yeah, and that's what we're going for.
But your fundraising, actually, there's something else about your MS advocacy and how you've been involved, and just I'm really interested to know how you went from being a guy doing what he does, being diagnosed with the multiple sclerosis, and then playing the part that you do now in research. You're part of, you're a board, I think, on a few different panels, a board member on a few different panels. And something, again, I got from your LinkedIn is that, and I didn't know this, I know about it, but that you were obviously key in getting the Disabled Persons Railcard for people with MS. How did that come about?
Barney, I'm cheap and I'm bullshit.
That's good, because I'm paying you hee-haw for this.
Yeah, exactly. So I have another friend who's Scottish who went, well, you just nailed me as well. I went, well, yeah, I used to work with a bunch of Scots. But it's just, rail fares are really expensive. And once again, Disabled Persons Railcard. And I thought, I applied, and they wrote back and said, you're not disabled enough. And I thought, who the hell are you to pick and choose? And I mean, everyone says it's a hidden disability or it comes and goes. And so I then went and looked at the Equality Act 2010, which covers, and 3 conditions are named as a disability from the date of diagnosis. It's not a how disabled you have to be or anything, and MS is one of them. So I wrote to them and said, I think you'll find in the government legislation that MS is a disability regardless. It doesn't matter if it's mild or you're on your back, an EDSS of 9 or 1, MS is a disability. I said, so I'll tell you what. And they were like digging their heels in a bit. And they're really hard to find, the rail delivery group, to get to even who you needed to be talking to. It's not easy. But that, it sort of becomes a mission. You're like, right, I can do this. And I then said, well, I'll tell you guys what. I said, if you don't want to give me the card, I said, we will go to court. We will discuss in court how you know better than the government about defining disability, because it's in the legislation. I said, and it may not surprise you to know there will be quite a few journalists there, and you will be able to describe to them why you know this better than the law. I mean, who the hell are you to tell me how disabled I need to be disabled? Yeah. If my condition is a disability, it is. And all of a sudden, they rolled over. Those letters when you open a letter and it says, Dear Mr. Black, in this instance, and you're going, winner. And it's like I contested a ticket once, and I wrote them the thing, and you get Dear Mr. Shadbolt, in this instance, and you're like, I don't even need to read the rest of one. And I was helped by my MP at the time, a guy called Ed Vasey. It's just when you involve your MPs and stuff, and just go, essentially it's a bureaucracy where no one wants to take account.
I know about it. I haven't got one.
No, but you're entitled to one. You see, no one has to, but every single person with MS is entitled to one. And you know what the worst thing is, Barney? They promised and have it in writing that they would change the website because it still makes it sound like you need to have a degree of disability. But what it is, if you just write in and say, I've got MS, it doesn't fit in one of these, but it's under the Equality Act, and here's my proof of diagnosis. They go, okay. And but it's just, so my new MP is a Liberal Democrat who used to work in the rail industry, and I saw him days after he was elected, and he's got a lot on his plate, but it's one of these, nothing changes quickly in government. I think it's designed that way. I think we've all seen Yes Minister to a greater or lesser extent. It's people your age and my age, may have seen it.
That's true.
It's on the internet and it's worth watching, but It's
It is
so
worth watching because it's almost what's the word? It's still relevant. Today you see some of the
it is some of them,
conversations.
yeah, and relevant to other circumstances as well. I mean, it's
Yeah.
superbly written, but in the days of Instagram Reels these days, I'm not sure many people
Yeah.
want to sit down and watch a 30-minute. Really,
Yeah,
I think it's really, when I say intelligent, it's intelligently written. You don't have to be intelligent to get it. It's very funny. But anyway, that was what got me into it. And, of course, the MS Society and stuff were like, oh, really? What? And so I just put this up on Shift MS. I mean, people still write to me occasionally. I'll get something, drop in my email, go, I'm doing this. And because there's still buggers about, some people find it very off-putting. I'm of the, yeah, that's bullshit, Nate. Yeah, and that's my sort of, I take that thing and I don't, but some people, I need to know, honestly, really, you can do. And they're fine then.
Obviously, you're a big part in the MS world, right? And the people you engage with, the things that you want to trial, be an advocate of. Where does that come from? And I guess what was the motivation?
Do you remember growing up how your parents would embarrass you terribly and you still wanted to curl up and die and have the earth open and swallow you up? Well, my mum outshone most people for that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I remember her distinctly once in the middle of the supermarket. Something had been mislabeled and the bloke was he was trying to like bluff her off, oh, you don't understand this, you're a woman type thing. She just stood there and went, yeah, I'd like to see your manager. I'd like to see your manager. And she kept raising her voice. And this bloke said, and where his kids were going, oh my God, shut up, Mum. Yeah. But she had that kind of sort of just, social justice. I mean, we were waiting at the lights once in the car and the guy in front chucked all his rubbish out the window. So she just put the car in park, jumped out, went up, picked all this up, knocked on his door and he opened it. And there's some slightly crazed looking lady and she shook the bag on his lap. And pretty sure threatened him with violence. That would be, and then drove around, jumped back in the car and drove around him. I think he was so stunned that his mates were killing themselves. But it's, again, I think he won't forget. And she ended up as the governor of a maximum security men's prison at the end of her career. So, but I guess that's normal. When you grow up, that's normal.
Yeah.
That's what you see. That's normal. I don't like people. I don't like being mugged off, and that road card thing, you just thought they're just mugging me off. And the amount of other people that are being disadvantaged because they're being sort of bureaucratic ignoramuses. And it's just like, I'll take the system on, because frankly, I think it's unfair. I've just written a paper. It's to be published in a medical journal. A couple of the guys I work with, Professor Schmier and Professor Baker, are co-authors on it. And it's looking at the NHS England prescribing data and just being able to see where there's people that aren't being as well served as they are in other areas, just following the protocols for drug prescribing. You'd think it was a no-brainer. You think every neurologist went, well, here's the list, we'll do this. And some people are still getting crap treatment, and you're just like, why? I mean, it's to highlight this, it's to bring it to people's attention. MS is forever. You can't just treat it lightly. We know that you should treat it more than lightly when it starts. The prescribing data is such that, some people are going to say, no, I don't want to take drugs. Some people are going to say, no, I will only take beta interferon. So you're always going to get the outliers in the data set, but it just, the data speaks louder than anybody saying, oh, well, I do this or I do that. It's like, we've had to elevate the level at which we sort of go in at, because we don't want to identify individuals. We just want to say that, frankly, you'd be better off in another part of the country, or to have the people, have that part of the country that's not as good as others say, or for people to be able to see, because you should be able to choose and understand. It shouldn't be veiled and cloaked and kept away from you.
I agree. I agree. I think I've now also come to the conclusion about treating it hard and doing everything you can to give yourself the best possible outcomes. There's no guarantees. When we had a brief chat last week, I did say about my inconsistency with taking the Tecfidera. Funnily enough, is the one that I'm on, the dimethyl, and I was trying to balance that with being healthy, staying healthy, living a healthy life, and being active, and eating the right kinds of foods and everything else. And it was my wife actually, who basically challenged me and says, "You know better than the experts," you know. And it's like, okay, there's a thing. Yeah, I probably need to swallow that pill as well, you know.
So to speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, this is one of the problems with oral medication is as much as people try to be good, yeah, people do better on the intravenous ones, for example, because you got, it's something else that's done to you in hospital. So if you're on ocrelizumab, it's every 6 months. If you're on ofatumumab, you inject at home every month, but they find that the compliance isn't as high with that. And like any medicine, the compliance, everything's based off doing it, the way they say it should be done. And I can't say how thrilled I am to have had Lemtrada, because it's like one and done. I mean, there's 2 lots of infusions, but that's it. I no longer have to think about taking an MS medication every day for you, morning and evening. You've got to take your pills.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I can't remember if I said this to you last week. I set an alarm AM and PM for the 12-hour kind of cycle when I get up. Then I switched the alarms off because the alarms were annoying me. It's just like...
Yeah, even now, I mean, I take modafinil, and if I'll forget to take it sometimes, and then I'll be sitting there at noon just hanging, just realizing that I haven't had it, and I've forgotten, and I meant to. But Lemtrada went into me in 2 occasions. Boff, nothing. I never have to think about it. It's just if there was anything to commend, either cladribine or Lemtrada, or some people have had stem cells, but it's done. Nothing else to think about.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a segue of sorts, obviously, what we take and how we look after ourselves. And right now, you're probably very aware of just how much you're eating, what you're eating, the exercise, the training regime that you're on for this huge adventure you've got coming up.
Yeah, one of the best
days or so now.
Sorry? One of the best things, I can eat what I like all the time. I made some flourless peanut butter cookies the other day, just an experiment. I must have eaten about 8 today. I can't get my weight above 75 kilos because of the training and everything. And I'm sponsored by a nutrition company for this ride called Torque, Torq. And the guy's going, you want to aim to get your weight up. And the guy's going, oh, you want to get your weight up before you undertake the ride, and they do. And I said, I'm trying. It's up from 74. I'm gonna look like I'm gonna look like I will lose weight on the ride. I can't think of any polite way to say it, but I'm gonna look a bit. When I'm done, I think it's. I mean, I broke my femur in the past on a bicycle, and it was pretty major operation. I came out of hospital, and I was weighing about 10.25 stone. It was not a good look.
The amount of calories that you need to take on board, the amount of eating that you need to do, that's a bit of an exercise just doing that. The regularity of it.
Who was an Olympic rower, and he said, they had to eat 5 times a day when they're on training camp. And he said, it becomes really hard work. I'm peckish now. I got my supper cooking. I'll eat that when I'm done. But I'll be, I mean, average male, you or I, average male needs 2,700 calories a day max, and I'm looking at 5,000 when I'm on the ride. My neurologist said, Charmaine said, what are you going to eat? I went, everything I see. And one guy I spoke to who cycled across Canada said, now, one of the things you need to do, he said, you'll go into somewhere like Denny's or a diner or something, he said, and you order 2 breakfasts and then spend 5 minutes explaining that there's one of you, but you've ordered 2 breakfasts because you want to eat both breakfasts. To set you up for the day. And it's like, yes, I will eat 4 eggs.
Absolutely.
and so it sort of becomes, and you really suffer if you don't. Know about it if you're doing that, because I'll burn on a training ride. I'm riding harder than I would do in Canada, but if I ride sort of 3 hours, say, it'll tell me I burn sort of 1,500 calories.
Oh, easy, yeah.
And it's and I'm not going as regularly. I mean, in Canada, it's going to be, it's like religion. Ride for 6 days, take a day off. Right, so 6 days on, 1 day off, and the aim is to ride 50 miles a day.
How did this come about?
I have previously thought about riding across Canada. it's a big place. I was born in Vancouver, because you probably hear a twang in my voice, but I've lived,
Yeah.
I've got two passports. I've got this Canadian one,
Yeah.
and I've got a British one, but I've lived 4/5 of my life here. And so I'm getting all my stuff out, Barney. I'm planning,
Yeah.
And so I was chatting to Prof G, Kevin Giampanoni, and he certainly helps assist me in the you can do this and sort of thing. And I don't see why I can't. I mean, if something happens, it happens. But my view on doing stuff is, if you don't start, I mean, the worst thing would be the amount of sponsorship and support this whole thing's attracted. Corporate sponsors. I haven't paid a penny of my own money. I am the leg man, and donations are already coming in. I did a video interview with Aaron Boster the other day.
Yeah.
$1,500 of donations in the next 24 hours. And it's I haven't even started yet. That'd be the worst thing, Barney, is if I didn't finish. The embarrassment of not being able to do it. If it's something that stops me, like a forest fire, nothing I can do about that. But if it was just a case of, I don't fancy this anymore, that's not my style.
Yeah.
And I know I can do it. And I know I've set an achievable target. There's no point in setting some stupid thing of going, I'm going to do 150 miles a day. Not going to happen.
No, because you need that every day to be able to just keep moving the next day. At the end of that day, you don't want.
For sure. I'm camping. It's I think one of the downsides is I probably never want to look at a pack of noodles again in my life when
Your whole diet, I'm sure, probably changed. The things that you love now,
when you're camping, your diet, my diet's going to be some, noodles are great for carbs and stuff, and they're fast to cook. You're not going to make gourmet food when you're just sort of crushing at the end of the day. I've got a tent, a good sleeping bag, a mat, and all that, and the tent sponsor that I wrote to them just kind of cheekily, small firm that do these sort of uber groovy tents, and the guy wrote back and said, well, we don't normally sponsor people, but this sounds interesting. I'm sending you a tent. And it's
you've got a tent.
Oh, it's a one-person tent. Well, I already had a one-person tent, but it was the wrong kind, should we say. It was heavier, and this is a kilo. It's 980 grams or something, and it's almost twice the size. And so, I mean, it's amazing. Guy Durston did it. Dan Durston, a small company called Durston, and he just said, here you go.
That's magic. That's good. And obviously you've been sponsored throughout lots of different bits and pieces. You talked about the shell of your,
they're making aerodynamic tail at the university. It's essentially a fairing, and they're doing that. There's a fairing for the front that's being sponsored by a German company that does this. The trike, I got 40% off the trike, because these things tend to come from smaller firms that don't have as deep pockets. Celestial Health, who make the AI insoles. You said you saw that. They've sponsored me $5,000, and Oxford Pharmagenesis has given £5,000 towards social media, and it's just a guy I grew up with, phenomenally generous in Canada. He's become an incredibly successful businessman. Oh, my accountant says we can give you 20 grand, and it's just like it's like pocket change for him, and it was like that kickstarted the whole thing. It's like, right now we've got some money, we can approach other people. Canyon, the bicycle company, sent me well over £1,000 worth of bike clothing and stuff. And it's just, from Ever Torque, the sponsors sent me boxes and boxes of gels and bars and meals. And, it's just wow.
Now, on Saturday, when you did your live stream on YouTube.
On my YouTube channel. That's another thing I've done.
Yes. Well, you've got a lot of social media. I'm going to ask you, what's the best way
Aaron
to get to
Boster in the States convinced me to start a social YouTube channel about 3 or 4 years ago. We were chatting one weekend because we know one another, and he took me into it. Because men like us were underrepresented in MS. He said it's one of the few places where men don't have the whip hand. It's far more women with MS. You and I are not that common.
And the terrain, I've never been to Canada, but I suspect you're going to be on fairly varied terrain. I'd imagine tarmac is the plan for most of it, you hope.
All of it. I hope. If I'm not on a tarmac road, I've made a navigation error.
Right, okay, so that part. But elevation, I suspect, is going to be a big part, is it not?
People have said, the Rockies. When you look at it's the angle. When you're doing a climb, it's the angle, that makes, you can, I quite like hills. It's a secret thing. Mont Ventoux in France, which is 1,900 meters tall, and it's 26 meters from the bottom to the top. On a mildly drunken bet in 2009, I rode up it on a fixed gear bicycle, which was the hardest thing I have ever done. Yeah, and I mean, there was a car full of Belgians who drove past me and then slowed down, and they're pointing at my bike, going "Fixie, fixie," because it's only one gear.
Yeah.
And I had this Belgian support crew all of a sudden cheering me on in the last 10K. I mean, it was hilarious. And but nothing's as steep, yeah. And when you look at it, the elevations, I mean, the prairies is flat. There's going to be about 500 kilometers, but I don't need to go around a corner.
Right. Okay.
You know, and the prairies rises something like 300 meters from one end to the other, over 3,000 miles, you know, or 2,000 miles. You know, it's not a steep hill.
Yeah.
And there will be hills.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
unlikely, you know, I live near Oxford, and we're right on the edge of the Chilterns, and you
Yeah,
get
I know,
the
yeah.
sharp shock hills here, I would call them. You know, you have to
Yeah.
grind up them. And I look at my
Yeah.
power output, and I can be doing 550, 600 watts to get up a hill. But my aim is to run about a constant 210 watts.
Okay.
You know, I'll run
Okay.
260 watts when I'm, you know, but again, I have a power meter from somebody who's sponsored my cranks. They do
yeah.
power meters, but it's really helpful to moderate your power output, to know what you're doing.
Yeah, so you can keep
Yeah.
an eye on your energy levels. No, that's
Yeah.
point. I was going to ask something else about the trip. Oh, social media was what I was going to ask about the trip. Will you
Yeah.
be doing all of that yourself, or have you got?
Well, so there's an agency, but I mean, ultimately, I have to. So, do you know what an Insta360 is? One of those cameras that does this incredible. So,
Yeah, they're amazing.
I'm getting embarrassed, but a sponsor sent me an Insta360 because they ain't cheap, and that's going to be mounted on top of the trike, on top of the flagpole. The Insta360 pole is actually replacing the flagpole and the trike. So then we just screw it on the top. I've got my phone, which, you know, everything's going to run through here. My nav, the whole lot, yeah. And I'll be going live on YouTube, you know, at times, because I think people want to know, you know, there's a slight element of who's this fool.
There'll be a lot of dot watching going on. There'll definitely
and on the website, I mean, there's a website. Just so everybody, I'll give you all the links so that you can put them in the
yes, please.
in the description or whatever. So it's I'm not going to bang on about donating here. I mean, but the one thing I would say, Barney, that's one of the biggest things people can do is engage with the social media posts, because our lives are ruled by the algorithm, whether we like it or not. There's many algorithms, but I just say the algorithm. And when it sees that people that aren't normally sort of looking at Dominic's stuff engage with it, it tells the algorithm that this is good stuff, and it shares it to more people. And we will get the $1 million if we get in front of enough people. Because we've made it so you can, if you can just donate $1, if you're not feeling exactly very rich, you can donate $1. Somebody donated $1,000 the other day. No idea who. Yeah. I mean, it's just a name on a piece of paper, but they mean nothing to me in the sense that I don't know who they are. I don't have a relationship with them.
And you've connected to them somehow. No, that's the
I
thing.
think it's through Aaron when I was being interviewed by Aaron. So, you know, no pressure, Barney, but
yeah, I don't think I've got as many followers as Alan, but I will be supporting and promoting every opportunity I get.
If anybody watching this, you know, if you just watching this thing, if you just engage with the social media, you know, I would say to people, you can follow, but it doesn't mean you have to watch everything. But just clicking the follow button, you know, it doesn't do you any harm or cost you any money.
Yeah. No, but absolutely not. The sharing is as important as maybe the giving. I guess the giving is more important because money's looking to be raised, but the sharing can't be overlooked.
It's a tiny bit of effort, but it's no cost. That's how I look at it, you know. So it's and essentially it's to help spread the message so that those who want to or are able to donate can, because they've had the option put in front of them. It's not Mr. Beast. It's hard to make it funny and sexy, and you know, it's just.
I'm sure there'll be some laughs.
They're looking for me to be chased by a bear. I'm going, do you know how fast they are? I would never win.
Somebody will dress in a bear suit and chase you.
I hope so. My wife said, if you get eaten by a bear, the donations will go through the roof. I'm like,
she's right. Maybe. She's right. It's not what we want to happen.
I mean, I'll commit, but I don't want to commit that much.
Yeah, how committed are you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how many days are you hoping to do this journey in?
I'm hoping to do it in 4 months because of the weather window. I mean, people think of Canada and they often think of cold, but I mean,
Yeah.
I'm from British Columbia, and the joke is you don't tan, you rust because it rains so much, and but it's to get across in the sort of best weather window. So it's starting May the 1st in Halifax, and
Yeah.
it's aiming to finish. I hope to do it sooner, but Barney, I don't want to mouth off and say I'll go faster than so end of August, and end up at UBC, University of British Columbia has a big MS medical center.
Okay.
So, and I'll be dropping in on places. There's a lady called Audra Shepherd, who she's really cool, Canadian. She's called Tripping on Air is her sort of handle. She's one of the MS community who's quite well known. And Audra's her book was published yesterday, I think. But there's I interviewed her on my website, but she's so kind. I'm just going to give her a plug. And it's called Philosophy. And because she's had MS for a long time, but she's on the board of a big MS center in Toronto. She said, can we take you around for the day? And so it's things like that.
Yeah.
And I just want other people to see that something's possible. My view is exercise is awesome, but if you can walk 10 steps, 5 steps out, 5 steps back, make it 6 steps out, 6 steps back. That you're not riding across Canada doing half marathons or anything. It's an achievement if you can up your exercise by 20%, because that's what it is. If you walk 12 steps instead of 10, but it's just, it can be done.
I agree with that philosophy. I know putting it into practice can be a bit harder, but putting it into practice can still be achieved. It's just, you can always surprise yourself just by being able to take that extra step.
The best thing for me is I have an objective, so it makes the exercise easy. Well, not easy, it makes it easy to get out and do it because I'm gunning towards an objective. It's much harder to go and stick to a regular routine if you haven't got something in mind. Whether or not you want to run a race or walk 20 steps overall or whatever it is, But if you can walk 10, but your aim is to walk 20, then that's something to aim for.
Yeah. Don't limit yourself. I think that's the thing. What we haven't actually mentioned with any specifics is, what are you raising the money for?
Oh, very glad you asked. It's not for me. It's for MS brain health stuff. So we refer to it as this sort of patient side projects. So what it isn't for is for lab coats and test tubes, if that makes sense. Because we're thinking now we're doing maybe some starter packs. We were just sort of spitballing this the other day. If there's a local group, let's say it's you, Barney, and you get 10 people together and you want to start a small MS running club or something, it's helping people get going. Maybe it's helping them with the t-shirts or the event hire, or giving them some money for trophies or something like that. It's for people, for MS patients. And it's being run through the Brain Health Center of the Rockies. So they're a non-profit, which is just like a charity in the US. And we have a separate fund going in there. So they're the nice, we don't have to do all the legal admin work to set up as something.
Yeah.
And we know them. And there's, so they're creating a separate oversight board with me, Professor Schmirer, and we're thinking probably 2 others, but it's all happened so fast, Barney. We know it's for global brain health causes because you can't always get a DMT, but everybody can do things to help their brain health. It's the world's an unequal place, but if you can, sometimes it's just with a bit of knowledge and support for people to do things, because it's the second best DMT to exercise is the second best, but just brain healthy lifestyle. And if you go to brainhealthcr.org, you'll see all the stuff they're doing. And that's what really inspired us, because the guy who runs that, a neurologist in the States called Augusto Mirabelli, we were chatting at Ectrims, and he was really happy for us to, it's quite an effort for him to sort of help accommodate us, not charging us a thing, nothing. So that so much, if you give money to a charity, sadly, and I mean the charities have to run themselves, they don't run on fresh air. I get that, but this means that even more money can go towards brain health causes, and it's in a nice, safe, credible place. It's not like in Barney's bank account, don't worry, it'll be fine sort of thing.
Yeah,
So,
we'll look after it for you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, this is all fully sort of auditable and everything. So I think it's super important. For me to know that, and for other people asking somebody to donate money, you know what I said earlier, that I'm a bullshit, cheap bugger. Well, that's if somebody said, "Oh no, it's going to my bank account," that'd be me out. I just, I want to see it nice and above board.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's the credibility and it's the authenticity that you bring to it that makes that happen. I think that's really, really important. And clearly you're not just going for a cycle. The investment
I
that
am
you're giving.
I'm just going for a long cycle.
Okay, you're just going out for a bike ride. But the commitment is it's absolutely massive. It's maybe a bit tweety to say it's priceless, but it's that in itself is worth the dollar donations.
I've got an awesome PA called Lisa, and frankly, I'm not sure I could do it without her. She's just, the amount of stuff. I just suddenly get this thing on WhatsApp going, "When did you go to school here?" I'm like, "What? Why is this relevant?" She's like, "Shut up! Don't ask questions." And she's sending press releases out to people. She's organizing starting points. She's one of these sort of human dynamos where you just like set her up and then you end up just doing what you're told, basically, because that makes for a much easier life.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And what's the best way to contact? Yeah. What's the best way to contact you?
Through the website. I mean, I'll give it to you. It's www.rc and then the digit 4 ms.org. So it's rc4ms.org, and that's Ride Canada for ms.org. Everything's there. So if you want to follow any of the social media, it's all on the front page. If you want to make a donation, it's on the front page. If you want to learn more, then you can start clicking the links. What sort of trike is it? What tires do you run? I mean, people want to know this. So what chain loop do you use? What's your gearing ratio? It's like it's all there.
Well, you know what? You connect so many things. You connect those with multiple sclerosis or other chronic illnesses. You connect in people who just have a sense of adventure. You'll have all the bike enthusiasts who'll be looking at the kit and everything.
I'm a bike nerd, Barney.
You're going to have the travel log people interested in it as well. There's a huge interest in Canada just now, 51st state and all. So
we'll not do the politics. On the 51st state.
We'll not do the politics. You've not got an American passport.
The Canadians refer to Trump as President Pumpkin, which I think is hilarious. But, it's not a political podcast, but I could
definitely not.
Yeah,
definitely not. Listen, I'm really, really grateful for your time. I'm conscious we're into the evening, and there is one other thing, and I don't know if you've changed your mind on it, but I do like to ask all my guests for a choice of music, which just comes to mind. And something that you like to hear, whatever the moment.
Highway to Hell by AC/DC.
That's the tune.
That's what was going to be played at my funeral, along with the overture from Figaro. But that's one of my favorite classical music. But nothing. If I had to go, there's a big hill. What am I going to queue up on my Spotify?
Yeah,
I think an AC/DC based playlist. I've got them already. So if
it's
a really hard
session,
exactly. Yeah, they will be traveling with me.
Dominic, it's been a pleasure, man. I'm
Barney, likewise. I'm so pleased you invited me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. We'll keep in touch, and obviously I'll be sharing as much as I can for your adventure that's coming up in a few weeks' time.
And I'll ping you all the stuff you need in an email.
Good, man. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Great. And good night, everyone. Cheers. Take care. Thanks, Barney.
Cheers. Thanks.
All right,
bye Dom.